Welcome back to the Oasis Focus on Finance show. This week, the first in our series, we're chatting to Oasis CEO Adam Ebrahim. Adam, previously we spoke about the nature of markets and the fact that they are actually resilient, long-term, etc., etc. Now we have a look at specifics. Everybody is talking about China, the China syndrome, I call it. How is China impacting on us?
China is an important economy in the world. What China's managed to do over the last 20 years is they've turned most of the world into buyers of Chinese goods. Right? When I grew up, Chinese goods were things that you didn't want to buy.
In the bottom of a lucky packet.
Yes. And most probably that's imprinted on my mind. So generally, you won't find too many made in China in my wardrobe or in my home. And my whole focus, and Oasis's whole focus, is not to be dependent on any one country, any one company, and any one trend. So those economies, like the Australian economy, that is really a China proxy, are having a very, very tough time because China grew very, very rapidly. And in your early stage of your growth, you have nothing. So you've got to build roads, you've got to build bridges, you've got to build railway lines, and that all requires raw materials. And as that economy grows, people start consuming. So you stop building roads and because it's all in place. Now you buy cars and clothes, and that's where the Chinese, they're transitioning. But the interesting thing about it is, as the economy continues growing, cars get scrapped, and that scrap is put back into the process. Firstly, initially, when there's no cars, you first have to use iron ore, then eventually you have cars and they get scrapped. Now you use raw iron ore and scrap material. So what that means is you actually need less raw iron ore. So that's the natural development. What's happening in China, though, is the transition from an investment-led economy to consumption-led economy. And secondly, you know, we have boutiques like Zara coming to Cape Town and South Africa and the globe. And what Zara's competitive advantage is they can get from design to store in a couple of weeks. Whereas your traditional retailer has taken 18 months from design to store because they buy in China. So what's happening, these organizations like Zara and H&M are actually forcing people to come onshore, to be like Zara and H&M. And so people are moving away from China and bringing production more to their local area. So Europe is a very big textile production area. In America, places like Mexico is supplying the US, so it's production moving away from China. So at Oasis, yes, we're all exposed, the whole economy, the whole world is exposed because China is the second largest economy in the world. However, we're not dependent on one, we're dependent on so many, so we're diversified. We spend a lot of time talking about diversification. But we as South Africans have the most immense opportunity that we're not really positioning ourselves for, and that's Africa. And you know, our previous president spent a lot of his presidency building up the connectivity in the AU and Africa, and we are benefiting from that. And what we as South Africans need to do is we need to focus on connecting ourselves to Africa. We need the African Union. We actually don't need, like the European Union, the only thing is we mustn't take the euro, we mustn't make the rand the euro. Each country needs their own currency, but we need a free trade area. We need to speak for 300-400 million people, and then we can be equal partners on the World Trade Affair. It will give us punching power. It will make us more competitive. So Africa is our key to prosperity. And we really need to build on it. And we have a unique position. We're uniquely positioned to Africa relative to any other major Southern Hemisphere or Northern Hemisphere country. We're uniquely positioned to India. We're uniquely positioned to the Middle East. And we're better positioned than Australia and China to Europe. So this Cape route, is a fantastic location. And if we position ourselves really well for Africa, Middle East and Europe, I think we will prosper. And this economy itself, there's so many opportunities. Foreigners are coming and taking advantage of it. And they're prospering. And we just think that Africa is our counterweight to China.
Do you think that what I call the China syndrome in the long term could be a blessing in disguise? Because what's happening, according to what you're saying, challenges are being put up in front of us, but they're quite exciting challenges. I mean, there's a whole continent to be explored, not in the negative sense, but in the positive sense.
I think that's correct. But many people, like the sheep, they follow in Scop, one sheep runs and the rest of it runs. One person made money in China, so everybody went to China, right? Everybody. They haven't diversified. They haven't learned the tool. They don't follow the leader. Be the next leader. Be the innovator. So yes, being the innovator, the first person who went to China had a tough time. Didn't speak the language, didn't know their places. Going to Africa, firstly, it's much shorter. Okay. Yes, there will be tough times. And the innovators, those companies that have been and those individuals that have put down roots into Africa have done phenomenally well. And we own many of those companies. And we own companies that are investing. So we really need to reorient our thinking. It's tougher, but the opportunity is bigger. And, when something is easy, everybody does it. Mm-hmm. And then the value dissipates. And that's really what's happened in China. When it's slightly more difficult, then very few people try and do it. And the real pioneers are the ones who really do. And sure, the rest of the crowd will come into Africa, and that will be good because, some of the companies, South African companies, are putting up hotels. It's a real great story, and we just need to do more and more and more of it. We own a company called RCL. They basically, if McDonald's and Nando's and KFC wants to go into Africa, they have to use RCL to take them there. And that's why we own a big chunk of RCL. We own a big chunk of a company called Pallinghurst. They produce emeralds and rubies, beautiful stones. And they're creating a lot of wealth. They're creating a lot of... And they're basically going into Africa, expanding the horizons. And at Oasis, we're positioned for that.
So are you saying in essence that as South Africans we need to wake up in the business sense because there are opportunities, but obviously opportunity has to come with hard work?
Yes. I think, when you read the newspapers, it's hard work and confidence. If you're confident, you can take a long-term view. And if you take a long-term view, you will invest, you will work hard. And when you're investing, not only financial investment, but investing in business, investing in your skills, then you reap the benefit over the very long term. So South Africans, if you look at the media, we're obsessed with Eskom. Eskom's coming to, we haven't had power cuts for a while. Inshallah, it will start dissipating. Come the end of 2016, 2017, power cuts will disappear. Then what are we going to talk about? Now we're talking about the labor front, which is a problem. And the guys are jumping up and down at universities. This ain't 1976 or 1980. 1976 or 1980, we had an illegitimate regime, which we were, and I did not agree with the concept in 1976 or 1980 of liberation before education. Mm-hmm. Because you get liberated via education. Now people are making the universities not a place of learning again. And we've had this generation, we've lost generation because, and the people, unfortunately, what happens if you don't have the education, you don't have the skills, you do get left behind. And how can you be liberated if you are left behind? Okay, so we believe that education is not something that you do later, it's continuous. You can fight for liberation, okay? But by the way, to all the guys, we are liberated, we run this country. We don't have to have violence in the streets, we don't have to have violence in the workplace or at university. We now have all the channels to communicate, we have all the channels to rectify, we have all the channels to work through, which we didn't have in 76 and 1980. And so the one thing that we need to do is we need to go back to our children and our brothers and sisters and our cousins and say, get back to work, we'll sort it out, tell us what you need, we'll work it out together. Go to our kids and say, what are the issues at university, at school? Let's work it out and solve the problem, because we can, we have the power to do it, and we'll solve the problem. So having long-term confidence, creating stability, and creating a desire to succeed for anybody at a workplace, anybody at a university, or any old person is the ideal way of creating a prosperous society.
And Adam, thank you very much to you. You have been watching the Oasis Focus on Finance show. We will be back next week, and we have been chatting to Oasis CEO, Mr. Adam Ebrahim.